I did not tell anyone what I found. That was my first mistake. Or maybe it was the smartest thing I ever did. Either way, that choice changed everything I believed about the people who were living under my roof. My name is Alan Porter, and I am 63 years old. I have spent the last 40 years building a life in a coastal city that most people would call comfortable. My wife Helen and I raised 2 children in a house on a quiet hill with a view of the water. Our son Daniel moved across the country years ago. He works in finance and calls every Sunday without fail. But our daughter Lisa stayed close. Too close, as it turned out. It was a Tuesday morning in October when I found it. The smoke alarm in our bedroom had been chirping for 2 days. Helen kept reminding me to fix it, so I finally went out to the garage, pulled the stepladder out, and carried it upstairs to our room. I climbed up to replace the battery. The moment I twisted the alarm off its mount, I knew something was wrong. It felt heavier than a normal smoke detector. I turned it over in my hands and saw it. A tiny lens, no bigger than the head of a pin, hidden in the plastic. Behind it, there was a slot for a micro SD card that was definitely not standard. My hands started to shake. I stayed on that ladder, staring at the device. It felt like an hour, though it was probably only 30 seconds. Why would anyone need to watch me sleep? Who had access to our bedroom? Who had the time, the tools, and the chance to put this there? I carefully put the alarm back onto its mount and twisted it into place. Then I climbed down, put the ladder away, and sat on the edge of our bed. I tried to think. Helen was downstairs making breakfast. I could hear her humming along to the same radio station she had listened to for almost 30 years. Our daughter Lisa had stayed over the previous night, something she had been doing more and more. She was in the guest room, probably still asleep. Her boyfriend had left her 3 months ago, and she had been coming back home often, saying she needed time to process everything. I went through the motions that morning. I ate my eggs. I drank my coffee. I kissed Helen goodbye when she left for her shift at the hospital. She had been a nurse at the city hospital for 26 years. A little over a year left until retirement. We had plans. A trip across the country by train. Maybe selling the house and buying something smaller. After she left, I went back upstairs. Lisa's door was still closed. I stood in the hallway, looking at the smoke alarm and thinking about what to do. Then I made a decision that would shape the rest of my life. I would not rip it out. I would not confront anyone. Not yet. I needed to know who put it there. And more importantly, I needed to understand why. That afternoon, I drove to a small electronics and computer repair shop in a nearby industrial area. It was the kind of place that did quiet work and did not ask many questions. I told the young man at the counter that I needed a device that could detect wireless signals inside a building. He sold me a radio frequency detector, the kind used to search for hidden transmitters. It cost me $400. I paid in cash. That night, I waited. I needed to be smart about this. If those cameras were recording, I could not let whoever was watching see me searching the house with detection equipment. So I waited until well after midnight, when Helen was in deep sleep. I pretended to get up to use the bathroom. Then, moving quietly and keeping my body relaxed like I was just a restless old man wandering at night, I took the RF detector from where I had hidden it in my closet. I moved through the house slowly, casually, like I was just checking windows or getting water. The detector was small enough to keep mostly hidden. Whenever the signal meter spiked, I made a mental note but did not stop or stare. I acted like I was doing nothing unusual. I found 6 devices. 1 in the bedroom, in the smoke alarm above our bed. 1 in the bathroom adjoining our room. 1 in the home office where I handled our investments and bills. 1 in the kitchen. 1 in the living room. And 1 in Helen's walk-in closet. 6 hidden cameras in our own home. Watching us, recording us, for who knew how long. I did not sleep at all that night. I lay next to my wife of 38 years, listening to her breathing, staring into the dark, and wondering if I truly knew her at all. The next morning, I did something I had never done in 40 years of marriage. I lied to my wife. I told Helen I had a golf game with some old colleagues and would be gone until dinner. Instead, I drove downtown to a tall glass office building where I had made an appointment with a lawyer I had never met before. I did not go to the lawyer who had handled our wills and our rental property purchases. I wanted someone completely separate from our usual contacts. Her name was Rachel Kim. She looked to be in her mid-30s, with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She wore a dark suit that said she knew exactly what she was doing. I sat in a leather chair in her office on the 20th floor and told her everything. I told her about the chirping smoke alarm, the lens inside it, the RF detector, the 6 cameras spread across my home, the way my hands had shaken, the way I hadn't slept. She listened without interrupting. When I finally ran out of words, she leaned back and folded her hands. "Mr. Porter," she said, "before we go any further, I need to ask you something. Do you have any reason to think your wife is having an affair?" I had been married long enough to know that this was the common assumption. Husband finds cameras. Someone thinks the wife must be cheating. Maybe she is spying on him. Maybe someone is spying on her. It is always the first story people want to tell themselves. But I knew Helen. She was many things: stubborn, practical, sometimes too careful with money, but she was not unfaithful. That much I was sure of. "No," I said. "This is not about an affair." "Then what do you think this is about?" she asked. I had been asking myself the question for almost a full day. My mind kept circling back to the same answer, no matter how hard I tried to avoid it. "Money," I said. Rachel nodded slowly. "Tell me about your assets, please." So I did. I told her the house was fully paid off and worth around $2.4 million in our city's insane real estate market. I told her about our rental units, 4 small apartments on the other side of town that we had bought 20 years ago when prices were still reasonable. I told her about our retirement accounts and savings, built up carefully over decades. I told her about a small inheritance from my parents that I had invested in stable stocks. Altogether, Helen and I were worth about $6 million. Not extremely rich compared to some, but comfortable. More than enough to retire without having to worry. "And your will?" Rachel asked. "We have it set up so that everything goes to the survivor if one of us dies," I said. "After we both die, the estate is split evenly between our son and our daughter." "Does your daughter know the approximate value of your estate?" she asked. I thought about that. Lisa had always been the artistic one. She had gone to a design school in a nearby city. She had graduated with student debt and big dreams. Back home, she had never quite found a steady place in the competitive design world. She worked as a freelancer. Some months were good. Many were not. She lived paycheck to paycheck. She borrowed money from us more often than I like to admit. Last year, she had asked for an early inheritance. She said she wanted to open her own design studio and needed seed money. I had told her no. I did not think giving a 32-year-old $500,000 for a risky business idea was wise. I believed she needed to work her way up, like Helen and I had done. She had not taken that answer kindly. "She knows we are comfortable," I said carefully. "She knows we are not struggling. I do not think she knows the exact numbers, but she knows it is a lot." Rachel wrote a few more notes, then looked up at me. "Mr. Porter," she said, "I am going to suggest something, and you will not like it. But it is important. Do not remove those cameras. Not yet." "Why not?" I asked. "Because right now you do not know who put them there, or exactly what they are recording, or where the footage is going," she said. "If you remove them, whoever set them up will know you found them. They will destroy evidence. They will change their behavior. But if you leave the cameras where they are, and keep acting normal, they will get careless. People always get careless when they think they are winning." She was right. I did not like it. The thought of leaving those cameras in place, of being watched every moment in my own house, made my skin crawl. But I also knew she was right about evidence. If I confronted anyone too early, they would deny everything and erase any trace of what they had done. So I agreed. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Every morning, I went to work at the local credit union where I had been a loan officer for 30 years. I processed applications, talked to clients, attended meetings, and pretended nothing was wrong. Every evening, I came home and ate dinner with Helen, Some nights, Lisa came by to pick up more of her things or to cry about her ex-boyfriend or to ask for a little help with her bills. I played my role perfectly. I smiled. I nodded. I made small talk. And every night, I lay in bed beside my wife, staring at the ceiling, knowing that a camera an arm's length above me was recording my every breath. But I was careful. Very careful. I never looked at the cameras directly. I never touched them again. I moved through the house exactly as I always had. I read the newspaper in my usual chair. I watched television at the usual times. I went to bed at the same hour. To anyone reviewing the footage, I looked like the same predictable man I had always been. Rachel had recommended a private investigator, a man named Mark Holloway. He specialized in corporate espionage and domestic surveillance. The kind of men who knew how to follow digital trails and uncover hidden schemes. I called him from my car during lunch. We agreed to meet, but not at my house. Not yet. Not where cameras might see us. We met at a coffee shop across town, in a corner booth where we could talk quietly. Mark looked to be around 50 years old. Strong build. Short hair. Quiet, with sharp, watchful eyes. He did not waste time with small talk. I told him everything. He listened, asked a few questions, and then pulled out a small notebook. "Here's what we need to do," he said. "I need to see your house and scan for those devices, but we have to be smart about it. If there are cameras watching, we can't let them see me doing a full sweep. When is your wife at work? When is your daughter usually gone?" "Helen works Tuesday and Thursday mornings," I said. "Lisa is unpredictable, but she usually doesn't come by during weekdays." "Good," he said. "Next Thursday morning, I'll come by. I'll park a street away and walk up like I'm a utility worker or a contractor. I'll be in and out in under an hour. You'll act normal. If any camera catches me, I'll just look like someone checking the furnace or the water heater. You understand?" I nodded. The following Thursday, Mark arrived exactly on time. He wore plain work clothes and carried a tool bag that could have belonged to any repairman. I let him in through the side door. We did not speak much. He moved quickly and efficiently through the house with equipment that looked far more advanced than my simple RF detector. He worked mostly in areas where I had told him the cameras were located, but he kept his back to them when possible. In the bedroom, he stood on my bed, not a ladder, and examined the smoke alarm from an angle. He took photos with a small camera, made notes, but did not remove anything. When he finished, we went into the garage, the one place I was certain had no cameras. "You were right," he said quietly. 6 cameras. Professional grade. Wireless, encrypted, uploading to cloud storage. They have been recording for about 8 months based on the data logs I could access remotely. I felt sick. 8 months. "Can you trace where the footage is going?" I asked. "I'm working on it," he said. "Whoever set this up used VPNs and routing to hide the trail. Give me a few days. I'll find it." He left the way he came, walking casually down the street like he had just finished a routine service call. 3 days later, while I was sitting in my car outside the credit union during lunch break, my phone rang. It was Mark. "I found it," he said. "The footage is uploading to a cloud server registered to a company called Silver Ridge Security." "I have never heard of them," I said. "You wouldn't have," he replied. "They don't really exist. It's a shell company formed 6 months ago. Registered to a numbered corporation. But I traced the payments for the cloud storage. The money is coming from a bank account under your daughter's name." I felt the world narrow around me. For a moment, everything went quiet. I watched people walking past my car, holding coffee cups, checking their phones, carrying on with their ordinary problems. "You still there, Mr. Porter?" Mark asked. "I'm here," I said, though I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. "There's more," he said. I traced the IP addresses of the devices that have been accessing and viewing the stored footage. There are 3. One matches your daughter's laptop. One matches a phone registered to a Helen Porter. And the third belongs to a law firm in the city. Mason and Rowe Legal Services. Does that name mean anything to you?" Mason and Rowe. That name hit me like a punch. They were our longtime family lawyers. They had helped us write our wills 15 years ago. They had handled the paperwork when we bought our rental properties. Helen had always insisted we keep using them, even when their fees rose higher than I thought was reasonable. Yes, I said slowly. We've used them for years. Mr. Porter, Mark said, I need to tell you something else. Based on the access logs, they are not watching the cameras live. The footage uploads in chunks every few hours. The 3 devices log in maybe once or twice a week to review recorded segments. They are looking for specific things, specific moments. They are not sitting there watching you in real time. That is why they haven't noticed you discovering the cameras or meeting with me. They haven't reviewed that footage yet. That explained everything. They were not monitoring me constantly. They were searching through recordings for evidence they could use. Moments where I seemed confused, or forgetful, or weak. I think you should come to my office, Mark said. There's more you need to see. I drove to his office that evening. I told Helen there was a work dinner at the credit union. Another lie. Each one came easier than the last. Mark had spread documents across his desk. Phone records. Bank statements. Printouts of emails recovered from cloud backups. Your daughter has been in regular contact with Mason and Rowe for 7 months, Mark said, pointing at a series of highlighted calls on a phone bill. Always during business hours. Here are the dates and times. He slid another stack of papers toward me. These are emails from your daughter's account to one of the lawyers there. The subject line of this one. He tapped a page. Read it. The subject line said, Dad's mental decline, documentation. I felt cold. I read the email. Then I read it again. Then a third time, because my mind refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. Lisa was building a record of my supposed dementia. She listed times when I had allegedly repeated questions, forgotten conversations, or misplaced important items. She claimed I had become paranoid and suspicious. She wrote that I might be a danger to myself. At the bottom of one email, there were attached photos. I recognized them at once. They were pictures of pill bottles from our bathroom cabinet. Blood pressure tablets. Cholesterol pills. A mild sleep aid. All ordinary things for a man my age. In her email, she described them as evidence of heavy medication and possible mental instability. My stomach turned. There is more, Mark said quietly. Here. He handed me another set of pages. These are drafts of legal documents from a shared folder that your wife's phone accessed. Applications for power of attorney. A request for a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. Notes about long-term care options. They were building a case to have you declared mentally incompetent. The room started to spin. I grabbed the edge of his desk to steady myself. Why? I finally managed to say. Why would they do this? Mark pulled out one last document. This is a proposed revision to your will, drafted by that same law firm 2 months ago. In this version, if you are declared incompetent, your assets move into a trust controlled by your wife and your daughter together. You lose control over everything. They control the money. They control the decisions. They decide where you live and what happens to you. You would have nothing. I stared at the paper. The words blurred. I drove home from that meeting like a machine. I do not remember the streets I took or how long it took me. All I remember is turning into our driveway and seeing the soft lights glowing behind the curtains of the house I had worked 4 decades to pay off. Helen was in the kitchen when I walked in. She looked up from her laptop and smiled at me. It was the same smile I had fallen in love with back in the late 1980s. The same smile I had seen across breakfast tables, hospital waiting rooms, and family holidays. A familiar, warm smile that now felt like a mask. How was the dinner? She asked. Fine, I said. Boring. The usual speeches. Lisa is coming over tomorrow night, she said. I thought I'd make that salmon with lemon and dill that you like. That sounds good, I said. Then I went upstairs. In our bedroom, I stood beneath the smoke alarm and stared at it. Tomorrow, I told myself, I could pretend to discover it for the first time. Tomorrow, I could take it down in front of her and act surprised. I could act like a confused old man who had no idea what was happening. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, I lay down next to my wife and began to plan. The salmon dinner was on Friday. In the 3 days before that dinner, I moved money. I did not move everything. I did not want to look desperate or obvious. I moved enough that someone watching the accounts would see something, but not enough to show my full hand. I transferred $200,000 from one of our shared investment accounts into a new account at a different bank, in my name only. I contacted Rachel, and with her help, I moved the titles of our 4 rental units into a trust that I controlled. I changed the passwords on all of our financial accounts. I wrote down the new details and stored them in a safe place. If Helen or Lisa noticed the changes, neither of them said a word. Friday evening came. Lisa arrived at 6, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing a bright smile that made my stomach twist. Helen cooked the salmon, made the sauce she had perfected over the years, and set the table like she always did when the family was together. We sat around the dining table, the 3 of us, for what I knew would be the last time. "So, Dad," Lisa said lightly, pouring herself a second glass of wine, "how have you been feeling lately? You seem a little off." There it was. The first move on the board. "I feel fine," I said, cutting my salmon carefully. "Why do you ask?" "Well," she said, glancing at Helen, "Mom mentioned you've been a bit forgetful. Losing your keys. Misplacing your wallet. Missing appointments. We're just worried about you." I looked at Helen. She was slicing her salmon into very neat, equal pieces, focusing hard on her plate and not on my face. "I haven't missed any appointments," I said in a calm, even voice. "Are you sure?" Lisa asked. She leaned forward, her eyes full of what would have once looked like genuine concern. "Mom said you forgot your dental cleaning last month." I did not have a dental cleaning last month. I had never missed a dental appointment in my life. "Maybe I did," I said, pretending to think about it. "I am getting old, I guess." Lisa exchanged a quick look with Helen. It was a small, sharp glance, but I saw it clearly. It was full of meaning. They thought I was slipping. They thought their story was working. They thought they were clever. "Dad," Lisa said gently, "have you ever thought about talking to someone? A doctor, maybe. Or a specialist. There is no shame in it. Lots of people your age have memory problems." I put my fork down and looked at her. "What kind of specialist?" I asked. "Well," she said, "maybe a neurologist. Or a psychiatrist. Just to get checked. It would be better to know early, right? Just to be safe. Just to build their case. Just to get a doctor's opinion on record. Just to turn their lies into official diagnosis." I studied her face. I wondered when my daughter had learned to lie so well. I wondered how many little steps it had taken to get from the child who used to hold my hand crossing the street to the adult sitting across from me, trying to push me gently toward a locked ward. "I'll think about it," I said. The relief that washed over their faces was almost funny. After dinner, Lisa stood up to help Helen clear the table and take dishes to the kitchen. I heard them whispering in low voices. I could not hear the words, but I did not need to. I knew the tone. It was the sound of people who believed they were winning. I excused myself and went upstairs. In the bedroom, I stood under the smoke alarm one more time. I knew that somewhere, recorded in digital files they had not reviewed yet, someone would eventually see this moment. Maybe Lisa. Maybe Helen. Maybe a lawyer. For tonight, I wanted them to see what they expected to see, a tired older man getting ready for bed. A man who seemed a little worn down, a little lost, and not dangerous at all. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. On Saturday morning, I woke before Helen. I got dressed quietly and went downstairs to make coffee. As the machine hummed, I took out my phone and typed a short message to Rachel. "It's time." She had been preparing for this. She had the file Mark had put together. She had the emails, the bank records, the technical reports on the cameras, the notes about the shell company, and the early drafts of the power of attorney documents. Everything was ready. At 9 o'clock, there was a knock at the front door. I opened it to find two police officers standing on the porch. One was tall and broad-shouldered. The other was shorter, with a notebook already in hand. "Mr. Alan Porter?" the taller officer asked. "Yes," I said. "That's me. We have a warrant to search this property for illegal surveillance equipment," he said, holding up a folded piece of paper. Helen appeared at the top of the stairs, still in her bathrobe, her hair mussed from sleep. "Alan," she asked, her voice sharp with surprise, "what's going on?" I stepped aside and gestured for the officers to enter. "They're here about the cameras, Helen," I said. "The ones you and Lisa had installed. The ones you used to make me look like I'm losing my mind." I watched the color drain from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said weakly. "Of course you don't," I replied. I looked up at her, this woman I had loved for nearly 40 years. "Did you know Lisa registered the cloud storage using her own name? Did you know she kept emails that described the entire plan in detail? Did you know that you and Lisa only checked the footage once or twice a week, and you never bothered to review the parts where I discovered everything? Or were you counting on me being too far gone to figure any of this out?" One of the officers headed upstairs with detection equipment. The other stayed with us in the hallway, watching Helen carefully. "Alan," Helen said, coming down a few steps, "please. Let me explain." "Explain what?" I asked. My voice was calm, but I could hear a low tremor underneath it. "Explain how you were going to have me committed. How you were going to take everything I've worked for. How you drew our daughter into a plan to steal from her own father." The officer upstairs called down. "Found one," he said. "Bedroom smoke alarm. Exactly where we expected it." Helen's shoulders sagged. She sat down on the stairs, covering her face with her hands. "It was supposed to be for your own good," she whispered. "You're getting older, Alan. Lisa thought, it would be safer if you controlled everything." I cut in. "If you could decide what I'm allowed to do with my own money. With my own life." She shook her head. "You're not being fair." "No," I said, "I think I am. What wasn't fair was being watched in my own home for 8 months. What wasn't fair was having my wife and my daughter try to convince the world that I'm crazy." The officers found all 6 cameras within an hour. They unscrewed the smoke alarms, opened vents, and reached into corners. Each device went into a plastic evidence bag. While they worked, I took out my phone and called Lisa. She didn't answer, so I left a message. "Lisa," I said, keeping my voice steady, "it's Dad. The police are here. They've found all the cameras. I know about the shell company. I know about Mason and Rowe. I know about the emails and the plan to have me declared incompetent. I've moved the money. The rental properties are in a trust that you cannot touch. You and your mother have exactly 24 hours to pack your things and leave my house. After that, I'm changing the locks. Don't come here. Don't call. You made your choice. Now live with it." I ended the call. My hand was shaking, but the message was clear. Helen was still sitting on the stairs, tears running down her face. "Alan, please," she said. "We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can talk about it. We can." "We are finished, Helen," I said. "I have already filed for divorce. Rachel Kim is sending you the papers. You'll get what the law says you are entitled to, and not a cent more. That is more than you deserve after this." One of the officers, a woman about Lisa's age, sat with me at the dining table to take my statement. She listened carefully, asked precise questions, and wrote everything down. "Mr. Porter," she said after a while, "you should be aware that what they did, installing hidden cameras, conspiring to take your assets, can be considered criminal. You have the option to press charges." I thought about my wife in handcuffs. I thought about my daughter standing in a courtroom, hearing charges read out against her. I thought about everything they had done to me, and everything we had shared before that. "No," I said at last. "The divorce is enough. Losing the money is enough. I just want them out of my life." Lisa arrived about an hour later. She came in through the front door like she still belonged there, but the look on her face told me she already knew something had gone wrong. Her eyes were red from crying. Her voice shook when she spoke. "Dad, please, I can explain," she said. "No," I replied. "Just listen," she begged. "Please." "I have listened to you for 32 years, I said. "I listened when you were a child. I listened when you were a teenager. I listened when you came here crying about money and work and relationships. I listened when you asked for help. And I helped. But I am done listening to lies." "It wasn't like that," she said, her voice cracking. "I needed the money. You don't know what it's like, trying to survive in this city. Watching everyone else succeed while you're barely paying rent. I just..." "So you decided to steal it?" I asked. "You decided to take it without earning it, without waiting, without respecting my choices. You decided to build a story that I was losing my mind just so you could get control of my money sooner." "I did ask," she said desperately. "I asked you last year. You said no. You said I needed to work like you did. You don't understand how hard it is now. And you don't understand how hard it was then," I replied. "Your mother and I built this life from nothing. No one gave us a fortune. We saved. We sacrificed. We went without so that you and your brother could have more. I never asked my parents to lie and cheat to hand me their money early." Tears were running freely down her face now. Her whole body shook. "I'm your daughter," she said. "Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the little girl she had once been. I saw the teenager slamming doors. I saw the young woman with dreams bigger than her bank account. I saw the adult who had watched her own father sleep through a hidden camera for 8 months and planned to have him declared insane. "It meant everything," I said quietly. "It meant everything until you decided it didn't." Lisa moved out that day. She packed her remaining things, some clothes, some books, a few childhood items she couldn't leave behind, and walked out with red eyes and shaking hands. She didn't say goodbye. Helen stayed a few more days, moving more slowly, trying to talk to me, trying to find some crack in my resolve. There wasn't one. 3 days later, she was gone too. The house felt huge after they left. The silence was heavy, but underneath it was something else. The air felt cleaner. The rooms felt wider. I could breathe again without wondering who was listening. The divorce process took 8 long months. Helen got the house. I did not fight her for it. I did not want to live there anymore. Every corner of that place held the memory of their secret watching. Every room felt like a trap. She received half of our liquid assets, which was fair according to the law. I kept the rental properties and my retirement accounts. Mason & Rowe, the law firm, did not survive the investigation that followed. The Bar Association looked into their actions and found that my situation was not the only one. They had been involved in similar schemes with several other elderly clients, using family members and medical claims to gain control of estates. Their license was revoked. They now face criminal charges. 6 months after it all blew up, I received a letter at my new address. I was living by then in a modern apartment near the water, with large windows that watched the harbor. The letter was from Lisa. It was handwritten, several pages long. She said she was sorry. She said she had been desperate and scared. She said Helen and the lawyers had pushed her, guided her, convinced her it was the only way. She said she loved me. She said she wanted a chance to make things right. I read the letter once. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. Maybe someday I will answer. Maybe there will come a time when I can speak to my daughter without seeing the tiny lens in the smoke alarm. Without thinking of the word decline typed in the subject line of an email. Without remembering that she watched me sleep and took notes. But that day is not today. When Daniel, my son, heard what had happened, he flew in from the city where he lived. We went to a steakhouse near my new building and sat at a corner table. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said. "I'm sorry I wasn't here. I'm sorry I didn't see it. I should have checked in more. I should have noticed something was wrong." "They're not your responsibility," I told him. "You built your own life. You did what I hoped you would do. You didn't come asking for handouts. You didn't try to trick me. You did everything the right way." He nodded, but I could see he was still upset. Are you going to change your will? He asked finally. Leave everything to me instead of splitting it with Lisa. I thought of Lisa's letter in the drawer. I thought of her tears. I thought of the cameras. I thought of the lies. Part of me wanted to change everything. Part of me wanted to cut her out completely, to leave her with nothing and call it justice. But another part of me knew that using money as a weapon was exactly what they had tried to do to me. No, I said. The will stays the same. When I'm gone, you'll still share equally. What Lisa did is unforgivable, but she is still my daughter. Maybe by then she will have learned that some things cannot be bought, some things cannot be stolen, and some things have to be earned. Daniel nodded slowly. He understood, even if he did not fully agree. A year has passed since the day in October when I discovered the first hidden camera in the smoke alarm. I am 64 now. I live alone in an apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the water and the boats moving in and out of the harbor. I still go to work. I still have dinner with Daniel when he is in town. I have even started going out with someone new. It feels strange. It feels wrong sometimes. It feels wonderful other times. The truth is, I miss the daughter I thought I had. I miss the wife I thought I knew. I miss the family dinners, the shared jokes, and the easy silence that comes when people have lived together for a long time and do not need to fill every gap with words. But I do not miss the cameras. I do not miss lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering who is watching. I do not miss the fear. I do not miss the constant doubt about my own mind. Most nights now, I sleep well. Some nights I still wake up at 3 a.m., heart racing, and find myself staring at the smoke alarm out of habit. The therapist I see tells me this will fade over time. She says trust does not rebuild overnight. She says healing is slow but possible. I hope she is right. People sometimes ask me if I regret not confronting Helen and Lisa immediately. If I regret leaving the cameras in place for those 2 extra weeks. If I regret walking around my own house, pretending to be ignorant while I knew I was being watched. I do not. If I had pulled the camera out the moment I found it, they would have denied everything. They would have removed all the other devices. They would have wiped logs, erased emails, and built a different story. They would have told everyone I was paranoid. They would have said I imagined things. They would have pushed even harder to take away my control. Instead, I let them think they were safe. I let them think they were smarter than me. I let them believe their plan was working. And because they only reviewed the footage once or twice a week, looking for specific evidence of my confusion, they never saw me discover the cameras. They never saw me meet with Mark. They never saw me planning. By the time they realized what had happened, it was already too late. That is the thing about betrayal. It hurts, but it also reveals things you never knew about yourself. It shows you how strong you can be when you have no choice. It shows you how clearly you can think when your back is against the wall. It shows you what you are willing to do to survive. I survived this. I am still here. The cameras are gone. The people who plotted against me are exposed. The money is safe. And me? I am free. A month ago, I bought new smoke detectors for my apartment. Real ones. The kind that only care about smoke and fire, not about secrets. I took out the stepladder from the storage closet, climbed up, and mounted them one by one. My hands did not shake this time. My breath stayed steady. I checked each device, made sure it was simple, boring, and honest in what it did. When I climbed down, I looked up at them for a long moment. I thought about picking up the phone and calling Lisa. I thought about saying something small and safe, like, I finally fixed the smoke alarms. I thought about making a joke, about pretending that maybe we could laugh about it someday. But I didn't call. Some breaks are too deep. Some cuts never fully heal. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself, and maybe even for them, is to let go. So I put the ladder away. I made myself dinner. Then I stepped out onto my balcony and watched the sun sink behind the water, turning the sky into a sheet of orange and red. For the first time in a very long time, I felt something that was not fear, not anger, not sadness. I felt peace.